Welcome to the Pirate Broadcast, where we interview interesting people doing interesting things, where you can expand your connections, your community. Kindness is cool and smiles are free. And let's get this party started. Good morning, and it's a beautiful day for the Pirate Broadcast. I'm here and having a great time already today because we're having a conversation with Tiffany, and Tiffany's now a pirate. Tiffany, welcome to the Pirate Broadcast.
Arg, thanks for having me.
We were having a great time and a great conversation before the show started, and realized that, being a podcast producer and being a show producer is one of the things that we both really enjoy. And I just want to welcome you to the show and kind of dive in a little bit about how you got involved in podcasting. What was your journey and story into the production of a podcast? Because not everybody's in that, Like,
what? Not everybody has a podcast.
Yeah.
No. My husband and I, we worked together for 28 years or whatever. We've been in real estate. We actually had a really successful real estate company and had an alpaca ranch and ran a laundromat. And
wow.
We ended up moving, and we talked about this a little bit before. We moved to Austin, Texas for a bit, and then ended up in Billings, Montana. When we moved here, we didn't have jobs, nor did we have a business we're bringing with us. We literally just packed everything up.
Where should we go?
Exactly.
Billings.
Well, our son was ahead of us because he wasn't a huge fan, which just hurts my heart. But he wasn't a huge fan of Austin, which we were, but our family stays together. So we just went, this is enough. We need to get the band back together. So we came to Billings, and my husband, we were like, we know how to do stuff. I do marketing. I can run a business. My husband is in construction. He could get a job anywhere.
Yeah.
And so I ended up getting an actual job, which was, and I was purposeful about it. I was like, I want to learn, I want to be more disciplined because I'm an entrepreneur. So I can usually just do whatever I want to, and marketing's testing, and I can just get out there and do what I want. And I worked for a very conservative financial advisor. And he didn't want to grow. And I was like, well, I can't really take the job if you don't want to grow, because it just would hurt me every day to wake up. I was like, so if you grew, would that be okay? If what I did helped you grow, would that be okay? But you can imagine the kind of discipline it took to have to show him every bit of growth. And long story short, I, did the things he actually wanted me to do. And in the meantime, also, with his help being the amazing financial advisor that he grew his assets under management by over 54% in the year and a half, or the 2 years that I was there, 1 year of which was part-time. So I then transitioned into, okay, I need to work for myself. I put my 2 years in, I proved that I could be disciplined. Now I'm going to go do my thing. And so I started a marketing company, and we focused on content marketing. So I've been building websites since the 90s. I thought, I actually went in going, I'm not going to build websites. I only build websites for my friends, and I'm not going to do it for money. But I realized quickly, since I was doing blog posts and, what I called my secret sauce, I was like, well, everyone's got a really crappy website. And so I was always like, I would tell my clients, don't tell anybody, but I'll build your website, but don't tell anybody that I build websites. So I did that for a while. And when I started my first podcast about 3 years ago, and it was part of my marketing company. It was just to get to know businesses. I didn't know a lot of people. So I wanted to use it as a way to connect with people from the very beginning. I think I had under 20 episodes of that first podcast, one of which was with Neil Patel. And so I was like, I like this thing. This is my favorite thing ever. If I could do this all day, it would be my dream life. But I still was doing my marketing gig, because really everybody I would talk to was like, I don't even know what a podcast is. So I didn't want that education. I just felt like it was so much. I want to serve people with what they think they need right now. And so I just did podcasts for myself and for our own business. Well, a couple years ago, I transitioned from my for fun podcast to kind of fulfill my own, happiness. And I went in
your own itch. Yeah.
Exactly. I started a podcast my target audience became real estate agents because that I know real estate. I can help them make a lot of money. And so I thought I want to meet the top agents who understand marketing. And so I would interview these top agents. I set my criteria of what it meant to be a top agent. And then those are the people that I got on my show. And
Mm.
I did it not even to build an audience. Like I knew I would because the content was great, but I was really focused on those introductions, again, just who am I meeting? How can I
Yeah.
get to know them better? And I don't want to work with everyone. So it's also a really good screening process.
Yeah.
So
No kidding.
yeah. And so I was like, this is amazing. And then COVID hit. And again, I still just felt like I love podcasting. I don't know why I do marketing, like I don't know why I do content marketing when I love podcasting. COVID hit and everybody switched to this whole online thing and needed ways to consume good content. And I had two coaches. One was Allison Maslin. She's like a global coach and mentor to people, as well as a best-selling author. And she'd been coaching me, and she finally just turned to me and she's like, and we met because she was on my podcast. So her PR person reached out to me and said, like, can Allison be on your show? And that's how we
Yeah.
met. And I'm like, wow, you're amazing. And so she became my mentor, and she was just like, she just turned to me and she's like, just do podcasting. Like, you're so good at it and you could really
Just do
help people.
podcasting.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
I also had brought on another mentor because, COVID. And so
Yeah.
it's like all hands on deck, people.
Yeah.
And so same thing, didn't even completely different conversation, turned to me and said exactly the same thing. So we did it. I hit it. I created processes based on what I'd been doing that was working. And so that's, 100% my focus, training and then empowering people with these processes so that, because I know what it's like to be a host and you don't want to be bogged down. Like we were talking earlier, it takes
Yeah.
so much, but like, I just want to show up and then I want like my people to do it, but I want them happy. And so for my people to be happy, they need processes. And so it's just been a blast. Yeah. So that's my whole thing now.
I'll have to introduce you to the Pirate Syndicate because all of the systems that I built for the Pirate broadcast for, booking 300 episodes, over 300 episodes now, it's a process and developed in the whole process of having a remote producer produce your show and actually have you just show up and have everything else working for you is really, it's really altering in terms of what your freedom is and what your aptitude is for having more shows rather than less shows, because you got to deal with all the hassle and everything else that goes along with it.
Yeah.
So you're helping people recover their time back because you're helping produce their show. So that's fascinating. I raised llamas as well. So
Oh, okay. Yeah.
at one point in time we had a herd of probably 30 llamas. So
Okay.
maybe more. I don't know, but it's too funny. It's like, okay.
Yeah, we had quite old McDonald's farm. We had cows and chickens, and
Yeah.
sometimes people would just drop a random animal off. But the alpacas were
Yeah.
the easiest to raise by far. So.
Alpacas were they're very mellow. Yeah, it's easy. A lot easier than sheep, I'll tell you that. So,
Yeah, we didn't have the sheep for long.
yeah. Goat's the same story.
Yeah. Well, the kids like the goats, so
Yeah.
yeah. We did
So-
keep them longer than we wanted, but
So I've been in I started podcasting probably around 2014, and I taught a podcast movement. I've taught at universities and got journalists started on podcasts and everything, and it's evolving and it's changing, and it's really about storytelling and how you can actually get your information out there. So how you mentioned a flex plan that you use, or a concept a principle you use to help new producers or new podcasters kind of focus their energy. Walk us through that, Tiffany, and share some of the things that you found or discovered or were enlightened by this process.
Yeah. Well, interviewing is my favorite thing. So I established that I love podcasting, but really it's the interview.
Yeah.
Recently, in fact, yesterday, somebody on Podcast Movement in the Facebook group had said something about, what does someone want for Christmas? And someone commented, well, everybody should want to be on Joe Rogan's show. And I was like, and this is unpopular, but that's just what I'm going to say it anyway. But like, I don't like a show. So at all.
You can say it anyway.
Yeah. Like I don't like it. It's like painful to listen to. However, he's probably one of the best interviewers I've ever listened to. So I forced myself to listen to these interviews because I was so fascinated by his structure, so I was just really studying, and I still do, because I have so much respect. So for me, I would rather be a better interviewer and get more out of the time I spend with my guests, because it's not just my time, it's their time.
Right.
And it's their audience. So you just get so much more out of it when you put a lot into the structure of your interview. And and I'm selfish. So I also want to just have a good time and build this great relationship. It's always been my number one takeaway. So my thing is, like, I would rather have them on my show. Like, I don't care. Like, I would rather have that time to suck up, like, what is it? Tell me what you're thinking and what, rather than build a big audience. Like, I get it, but having that knowledge lasts beyond one show. I mean, that's something I'll be able to learn from, and other people can learn from. So the interview is really important to me, and empowering podcasters to be able to get that same enjoyment that I get means a lot to me. Yeah. A lot of people that I work with come to me, brilliant people that I can't even believe that they're concerned at all, but they're like, how do I do it? What do I ask? I'm so nervous, and it's like, okay, first of all, you're brilliant. So I'm going to just show you a couple things, and then you just do you, and you're going to love it.
Just be yourself.
Exactly. And one of the tools that I use to help them kind of open up their mind to their approach is what we call the flex approach, to flexing your curiosity. So if you walk into an interview curious, you're going to win. So if you just did one thing, just be curious. But to expand on that as you're kind of moving through and growing yourself as an interviewer, I always say, like, when you have someone on your show, you found something that you want to understand from that person. So first is find. You want to find, what is that? So when we did the real estate podcast, I was mathematically going, they fit my criteria. However, I needed to be curious. I need to understand who they are. I needed to find what it is that I want to find from them. Then as I'm doing that, as I'm going through the interview, I know that that's my agenda, and it could change through the interview because of the rest of Flex. And that's what I always wanted. I always felt like if I got something different than I even expected, it's a winning episode for sure. Yeah. And so, but I need to start with that nugget, and then listen, obviously. We all know, like, you got to listen when you're talking to people. And then the third is, the E is engage. So as you're listening, I mentioned earlier before the show that we do use an outline. A lot of people are resistant to it, but I feel like it's my responsibility to somewhat prepare. But if I'm expanding on those things I'm asking, that means I'm not just hearing the answer and moving on. I'm like, okay, they just answered. So what does that mean? And am I understanding what they're saying? And tell me more about that, things like that. So just expand on it, or engage. And then X is expand. That's when we talk about how does that move beyond this conversation. So we are going to end the show. How is what they're saying right now going to expand into our lives? So that's Flex.
Well, and using curiosity too, some of the things that you dive into, much like the llamas and the farm and things like that, little curiosities about the individual that you can bring up, and it's interesting conversation because it's relatable.
Yeah.
People can say, oh, I've done that. I've been there. I can appreciate and understand what that looks like. And I can imagine myself doing this. And some of those things are really expansive. Like you said, they're expansive. So did you list your answers to any of my questions today?
Did I list your answers, any of the questions? I don't understand. Tell me more about that question.
Well, you said you like to have a list, and so it's like, okay,
oh no,
you're on the other side of the.
I don't do lists on this side. No, I did listen to your show. Like I told you before, I was like, I felt like I'm in good hands. I'm just going to take what I do, and I'm going to show up. Honestly, I'm so selfish, but I show up to shows just going, I just want to see how you do it. Like, what do you like? It's just
What's the
so
process?
enjoyable,
Yeah.
and not just because I want to share what I have to say. It's really more about like, okay, so
What kind of
you're such a good
conversation?
interviewer. Like, I want to feel how this feels like on this side.
There's so many things that podcasting has brought to the world. And one of the things that, you mentioned real estate, and I'll bring that up again because it's so easy to have at least start a conversation with
Mhm.
somebody and saying it's much easier if you want to have a conversation about a subject and you invite them onto the show, and then you can actually start a conversation, build a relationship, build some rapport, and then you can have other conversations down the road. And it's just really if people realized how powerful it actually is and how much of an opportunity it is with having these conversations, it would amaze you. Has that been your experience? Is that some of the things that you find are really, like you mentioned, your mentors?
Mm.
You've found people and you've built relationships. I have what I would consider friendships all over the world now as a result of this. So how does that fit into your world, and how has your experience been for that?
Oh, it's, the relationships are the number one benefit. We started the podcast I have right now is Next Up Nation. And it's really my study. I know all my clients, everybody wants like this audience. I'm always like studying, like, so how does this work?
Uh-huh.
And with that, I've interviewed a lot of successful podcasters. And one of the questions that I ask everybody, I always have my core questions that I really want to know the answer to. There's my selfish questions, kind of where it's like, okay, so, what has worked? One of the
Yeah.
questions is, what is a benefit that you've gotten that is unexpected? So you started the podcast for this reason.
Uh-huh.
What's something that you got out of it that it surprised you? What's a benefit that you got? And it is almost always relationships, because you go into it, you think audience, you want to do this content, you want to build authority, if you can make some money and make it sustainable, that would be nice too. But ultimately what you get that you could never replicate, I think it's a unique opportunity to build relationships you wouldn't otherwise build. So
Yeah.
it is, from mentors to just understanding humanity. I just feel like even when you'll interview this superstar and you're like, well, that was kind of a boring interview, actually. Like, I've literally interviewed rock star, in my world, they're rock stars. And I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, that was not fun. It's really
That
clinical,
was painful.
Yeah, it's clinical. And like you were talking about, understanding what that person has beyond just what you came to the show with is
Yeah.
important, because it humanizes them. And if they have an agenda, like that could be why I don't make lists when I go on other people's shows. I'm like, I will be too clinical. Would you like to know flex? I can just tell you exactly what those words stand for. But people, you get to build these relationships and know who they are. And when they show up and you don't get that, it's a little bit like, okay, I got a bigger audience, but is this really what I woke up today to do? It's really about the relationships. You're 100%.
What's the one thing, if you had to kind of, that surprised you along your journey in podcasting that really you're still thinking, how did this possibly happen? Or how did I get to this place on this journey? Or something that was really something that not everybody would recognize if they're not into podcasting.
Yeah. Honestly, the thing that's really surprised me the most is that this is just going to sound so weird, but I've always been one of those people who I don't just stand up on stage and everybody notices. Like, I'm just one of those, like, I'm a workhorse. I usually am the one helping someone else be amazing. And that's, I think, why I like interviewing, because I get to prop someone else up.
Yeah.
But I just got asked to do the first. Okay, so when we do podcasts and I help podcasters, I often recommend that they have a mentor interview them for the first episode, because then they can share. There's just a million reasons why. So I was talking to someone and they're like, well, that just led me into, I would like to ask you to do it. And I just like literally almost cry. Like, I could almost cry right now. Like, I just felt like, what? what? Like,
Yeah.
I'm a mentor. Like, I've always been the support, like, you can do
Yeah.
it, you can do it. So for someone to kind of label me as that, and I hope it doesn't sound arrogant. It literally blew me away.
No, it's awesome.
I
It's
just
awesome.
didn't expect it at all. So actually just happened a couple days ago too, actually.
That's
So
fantastic.
I'm just like, yeah, it still blows me away. So the idea that I could do something I love for a purpose that is kind of offbeat, I'm
Yeah.
not like, oh, I want this big, I do want a big audience just because that's what it helps my clients know I know what I'm doing. But
Yeah.
it just, yeah,
So
it's,
now the real question is, a lot of people, and this is what I get asked all the time. Well, Russ, how do you monetize your podcast? And and I have mixed emotions about it. I want to hear your mentor's advice on when you're coaching someone or you're helping someone along their journey, how you position that with your experience.
yeah. Yeah, we have 3 profit pillars that we focus on. We've got, number 1 is what we call our white glove strategic guesting. And, this is always tricky because I don't wanna sound like, "Oh, we just want our guests on the show because we wanna make money."
Mhm.
However, as you can hear, we collaborate with our guests. Like, these are
Yeah.
people I would like to work with in some form, shape, or
Mhm.
form. Now, Tom Schwab has become somebody that I look up to. He's the owner and founder. He's the chief evangelical officer, I think he calls himself, of Interview Valet. And I think he's one of the most amazing people when it comes to guests and how they can, profit and make money
Mhm.
and build an audience by being on other people's shows.
Yeah.
So getting his point of view has really helped me actually solidify that what we're doing is right and not, being kind of on the, sharky side of things.
Yeah.
But what we do is we are looking strategically for who makes sense for us to have on our show because they're going to have good content.
Yeah.
And it would make sense for us to work beyond that. I mean, there are other ways to prospect for clients that we do, but these are really the people that, yes, like, you are my dream client. Could you please come on the show and tell me what your input is? Tell me
Yeah.
your insight. So that's one part, is just these introductions for meeting people who could be potential clients. And we actually have like 3 different segments that we're always looking for our show. Another profit pillar is the on-air lead gen. It's actually really similar to the approach to take as a guest on other people's show, where you understand what your next step is. So if someone's listening to you anywhere, whether it's your own show or someone else's show, and they're like, yeah, I dig what you're saying. Like, what's my next step? And having that
Yeah.
next step not only helps you get your word out there, but it also helps that person because they have a next step that makes sense for them.
Yeah.
So on-air lead gen is the second. And then the third is collaborations.
Yeah.
So where, partner placement, that's what we call it. So partner placement where, I've met with somebody, it's like, yes, we want to work together. What you do complements what we do. What you do sometimes is a better next step than what I do even. And
Yeah.
so understanding that and building collaborations, whatever that might look like. It could be affiliate links, it could be affiliate programs or, pages that people go to, but just understanding how you can collaborate with other people who share an audience, but
Yeah.
aren't direct competitors, that makes sense for you to work together.
Well, and the reason I bring it up is because I think a lot of people just say, well, I want to get a lot of listeners so I can get a sponsor. And that's a limiting belief from my perspective, because
Mhm.
there's so many more opportunities out there to work together with other people, do other projects, do some webinars, create some courses, develop a summit, online adventures, training. There's so many more options available to podcasters and broadcasters now than there was even 3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And I just one of the things that I really like to share is how to think about that abundance that's out there, and there's so many people that are you know challenged by what to do next,
Mm.
and being a guide along that journey for others is a good place to be. And a teacher is a great opportunity as well. So you have to think about what the possibilities are and then double it. Just,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, I'm not thinking big enough sometimes. And so it's really amazing. And I've been blessed because of some of the things that have happened on, different conversations take place, and they're sometimes random and out of the blue and unexpected. So that's kind of what I was going for is like that essence of surprise when you're going on a journey, especially an
Mm.
entrepreneurial journey. You've had lots of different experiences. There's probably been, surprises and surprises, some good, some bad, but they're just,
Mhm.
it's just part of the journey.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, and that's one
So,
thing, a lot of people are just, advertising. In fact, a lot of articles and data when they're talking about how many podcasts, how what percentage of podcasters are profitable.
mhm,
And when you look behind the data, it's usually based on listeners and what that equates into advertising spend. And it just makes me tired. Like I literally,
yeah,
if that's what I was hustling for, um, I don't know if I would like podcasting as much as I do.
yeah,
And what's nice is the audience comes. If you have the heart for good content, making relationships, I mean, the only outcome you're looking at is building an audience. So it's just, I feel like manufacturing it so that you can get this advertising that in my opinion, like I think I'm not against advertising, but I also feel like you get better content without it. And so
yeah,
if I can have better content and not have ads, that makes me happy too. So and still be profitable because I always say like podcasting's fun until it's not fun.
yeah.
And when it's not fun is it's not really sustainable, whether you're having to put too much time in and you can't afford to put, finances into making it easy. So yeah, there are a lot of different ways to monetize.
Well, I really enjoy the community, the
Mm.
community that I've developed in research. We got Jay Dell in here. We got Nick is in the house. Angie is here. And Shrivas is here. And we've got, people come and go and they evolve. And I got lots of people that show up on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and LinkedIn. And it's amazing to me to think about how um, long the content will last. It's not just one and done. You know, it's a slow growth. It's a marathon. And I have to remind people that that's why Pod Fade is, you have 7 episodes, 9 episodes or something like that. Nobody's watching my stuff. It's like,
Mm.
well, it takes some time, it's like, it's a journey, don't get discouraged by the fact that, nothing's perfect right now and you can still grow it. And I've been doing this for a while now. And, uh, that's been my experience. I mean, there's a lot of people that they really put a lot of time and effort and energy into getting that, that number one and launched and everything is in place and it's, at the top, and then it's all kind of, it dissipates for a little while and you have to keep growing. So it's like,
Well,
just
even
hang
Gary
on.
Vee, yeah, even Gary Vee says he didn't have listeners for a long time, like
Yeah.
months or year. I
Wine
can't remember what he
library.
said.
He was like, I had crickets for years. So
Yeah, yeah, just hang in there and do it.
yeah, you have to enjoy what you're doing. Like you really thrive in the environment, and like you said, you enjoy interviewing. You enjoy the interview process. I'm curious. I'm always curious. I always like to understand. It's like, okay, what makes somebody want to do this?
Mm.
What makes them do what they do, and how did they get to where they are, and what's the
Well
journey?
well, Russ, that's probably why you're a great interviewer. So, that's probably why that stood out.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, and thank you so much for being here. So, how do people get a hold of you? What's the process, and what do you prefer?
Well, if you want to reach out to me, LinkedIn, I'm really active on. If
Okay.
you connect request me, make sure you tell me that you saw me here, and I will be sure to accept that connection.
Tell Tiffany you're a pirate.
Tell
So,
me you're a pirate, and I will definitely accept that connection request. And then we have podcastignitionsystem.com is our website.
okay. Well, you know that we have a live show. We have a broadcast in the morning and a podcast in the afternoon. So this will all be produced. The transcription and the post and the podcast will be up this afternoon. And so I'll send it over to you with all the links.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you having me too, inviting me here. It's been fun.
Well, it's fantastic. And I always love meeting new, exciting people that are doing great work. So love to promote you and have you part of the community. You're now a pirate. So
Hey, thank you. Thank
yeah,
you.
thank you so much for being here. And as always, everyone, please, like, subscribe, share all of the social things that give me an indication that, you're there, you're out there, and I can support you and share great interviews with amazing people doing great things, interesting people doing interesting things. So, Tiffany, it's a pleasure. Wish you all the very best in your adventures. So.
Oh, thank you.
And kindness is cool, smiles are free, and you enjoy the day. Don't go away. Thank you for joining the Pirate Broadcast. If you found this content valuable, please like, comment, and share it across your social media channels. I would love the opportunity to help others grow in their business. The Pirate Syndicate is a platform where you show up, we produce the show. It's that easy. If you want to be seen, be heard, and be talked about, join the Pirate Syndicate today.